Yeah, alright. Just so you know, if you are a Patreon subscriber of mine, you can now tap. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can go to the top of this page on Spotify, and there's a little a little box, right? And you can tap that, and as long as the Spotify and your Patreon accounts are synced up, you'll be able to listen to all the Patreon episodes on here. If it just might make it a bit easier for you, the RSS feeds on here now. So if you're not a Patreon subscriber, you can have a tap on that, see if any of those appeal to you. Then you might think to yourself, you know what, yeah, I will try the Patreon. But anyway, here's a free episode of the Patreon. They wouldn't always start how this one starts, obviously, because I'm also explaining in the live stream I did for this about what Patreon is. But still, hopefully the main gist of the whole thing you might enjoy, you might not, you might think what the fuck is this, maybe you think this is a bit weird now, there's so many different types of podcasts available, but that's my head's like a dog chasing wasps, mate. That's the best way to probably describe it, innit? You know, there's a lot of noise in there, and I'm just sharing that noise with you. But if you are a Patreon subscriber, you might as well use the Spotify link on here. Otherwise, leave a fucking, leave us a 5-star rating on here, share one of these to your story and that. Anyway, here you go. Here's the episode. That's free to the public, but there's another 200 and odd on Patreon. Here you go. Well, all right. This one's going out free to people. So if you're hearing this and you don't normally listen to stuff on Patreon, sign up to the Patreon, mate. There'll be a link below. So what a daily update, so those of you that don't know, a daily update is just where I just talk about stuff in it. I've just been explaining this on a video version, so if you are watching this on the video version, it's going to be a bit weird, innit? I'm just repeating myself. But it's, I don't know if any of you read this the other day, but I've got the exact the amount of centimetres there. But have you seen that scientists have been studying the moon? Right, and you know what we think about the moon, innit? Like, is it real? Is it actually a magnet that is used to somehow control water and therefore control us? Is it a massive egg in the sky? What is the moon? I'm very suspicious of it, and I've always been suspicious of that and water. But apparently, right, every year the moon's running away from us at a rate of 3.82 centimetres a year. Now, scientists call that an incredibly small drift, right? But that's a metre every 30 and a bit years. Every sort of, 33 years, 32 years. That's a metre. The moon is a metre away. Now, why this seems mental to me, right? Because think about it. We've been to the moon. We've sent things to the moon, allegedly, right? We've sent men to the moon, maybe sent the odd woman. I'm pretty sure the Russians tried to throw a dog up there. There's all sorts of stuff that's been chucked up there, cars and that. Now, is that one of the reasons why we can't go back? Is that why? Is that why we barely made it back, kind of thing? Because we didn't realise. Because obviously these scientists at NASA and that, obviously what they must do is measure the exact amount of petrol or fuel or whatever it is, rocket fuel, whatever that may be, butane. Let's call it butane for the sake of argument, right? They measure the exact amount they're going to need to get there and get back, because otherwise they're wasting money and resources sending too much fuel there to bring it back. Plus, then if they've still got like half a tank left when they come back, how do they declare that on their accounting? Plus, also, if something does go wrong and it goes up in a ball of flames on re-entry, that's an awful lot of spare accelerant just knocking about there, innit? Just, ready for it. That's just a missile coming back down towards the earth, innit? But 3.82 centimetres, mate. Like, that's mad. That, in a way, to me, that you could. I was thinking about it, innit, and there was no real explanation for it. But surely, right, that means the Earth's losing its gravitational pull. And a gravitational pull is made by mass. That's what causes that, is the mass of an object. A very high amount of mass creates a gravitational pull. Which is why fat people are nicer to be around, innit? People want to be around them because they got that more mass, and it draws you in, and you're like, oh, aren't you nice? Aren't you friendly? Tigbiddy Dave over here making all the friends. And then you've got the idea, though, that we have been supposedly launching thousands of satellites into space, probably tens of thousands of satellites into space, if not hundreds of thousands. The Indians recently sending stuff to the moon and that. We've sent things to Mars, mate. We've put loads of stuff that was on the planet off the planet, right? Which means we've reduced the mass of the planet, and we're rapidly reducing the mass of the planet. So is that what's happening? Is that we're losing our gravitational pull, and that's why the moon is being pulled away from us, or pushed away from us, or we're just somehow releasing our grip on the moon? You know, that seems like it's a possibility, don't it? A way to explain that away. Because I have always wondered, like, wouldn't all these things to do with fucking satellites and that be detrimental to the Earth? Because surely the world has existed the way it is for quite a long time. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what about meteorites? And we'll go into meteorites in another episode, because I've been reading a lot about meteorites this week, and I think they're a bit suspicious, you know. But it just seems they can't. How is there enough meteorites hitting the ground? Because they burn up in the atmosphere, meaning they're turning into a gas, which I suppose is contained within the atmosphere then, which I presume adds to the mass of the planet, but maybe not. I'm not sure. I don't know where the mass ends and starts and ends. Do you know what I mean? Where do you start weighing from? Because, you know, if you get a imagine if that was the case, man. You get a fat person on the scales, and you're like, yeah, fucking Tigbiddy Dave, stand there. Right, stand on the scales. Right, okay, so now we've got your weight, but now we need to get the weight of the air around you as well. So pop on this bubble suit here, this little GIMP outfit I've made for you. I'm going to inflate it a little bit, and what that's going to do is it's going to attract all the hydrogen and oxygen in the atmosphere and that little bit of nitrogen as well, and we're going to measure how much of that's around you, because obviously there's more of it touching you than there is touching everyone else. So we can't include that in the mass. It makes no sense. So that must evaporate out somehow. But even still, even if we do take, let's take into consideration then that when these meteorites hit the ground, they are involved. They increase the mass of the Earth a tiny amount, right? 30 meteorites in a month, or whatever it might be the average. I'm making that number up, plucking it out of thin air, mate. How does that equate to like 5 satellites going up a month all around the world? How does that make any sense at all? It can't do. That can't equate to that. So surely we're losing mass, and that's why we must be losing the moon. Like, I've made a couple more notes on it, and it just seems fucking weird, me. The idea that this could happen. Like, I don't trust the moon at the best of times, innit? I really don't, me. All I've wrote down here is, by studying the moon, scientists have concluded that it's moving away from Earth at a rate of 3.82 centimetres a year, which is an incredibly small drift. But they must be doing that by all these mirrors they apparently put on the moon. And then they bounce the light back from these mirrors that they put on the moon. You know, because they sent up, even though we've only supposedly been up there once or twice, they apparently sent up that lad, didn't they, with the big bag of vanity mirrors, you know, from, I can't remember who sponsored it, if it was Primark or Claire's or whatever. But they took a load of vanity mirrors up there, didn't they? And they popped them all up there, so the surface of the moon just looks like a display cabinet for pocket watches, you know, and then the lights reflect back off that, and then they can measure it, you know, how long it takes to get there for a light and how far away it is. Like how when like a tradie has one of them measuring, you know, like a tape measure, but you can use the laser on it instead, and it measures it perfectly for you. So you haven't got to worry about where the tape measure starts. Does it start at 0, or does it actually secretly start at 0.2 millimeters? But you don't know until you gauge it next to another tape measure. It's just fucking weird, mate. And would that not explain as well for a change in like sea levels and stuff? Wouldn't that explain it? If the moon is slowly getting further away from us, right? So 3.82 centimeters is fuck all, innit? If space exists and space is real, that's nothing, mate. Nothing at all in the cosmic, you know, whatever scale of things. But let's take in like 30. I've been alive just under 30 years, innit, right? Which is a weird way to word that, but I have. And, you know, you've had all this global warming stuff and climate change and rising sea levels, but we've always been told that the moon controls the sea levels. So if the moon does control the level of the sea, and it's that magnetic force of the moon that's supposedly keeping the sea at bay and fighting the sea every day and night. It's keeping the sea from attacking us, right? Defending us from the ocean. Keeping the Pacific and the Atlantic at bay, literally at bay, keeping it away from us, keeping estuaries thinner and thicker, If that's what's causing it, the moon, then surely if the moon's being pulled away, that magnetic force is weakening. Now, over a year, 3.82 centimetres isn't very much. 10 years, 30 centimetres, still not that much. But if you did that over, you measured that, the effect of that, and then you're saying, oh, we can't tell everyone the moon's fucking running away, mate. If people find out the moon's running away, they're going to fucking lose it, mate. People are going to go mental thinking, where's the moon going? Why can't we go with the moon? And where are we going as well? If you, so the point I was making, if you pull two magnets away from each other, that magnetic force weakens, doesn't it? The further you pull a magnet away, the less force it can exert over like the pile of iron filings. The further you pull it away, the less it attracts them, right? The less comes to it. So that must work with the sea and the moon as well. So the moon's going further away, meaning it's pulling less and less of the ocean towards it. Well, the oceans towards it, right? That must be what's happening, if this is true. Excuse me. What was the other bit I was about to say? Before I got interrupted there by the cough. And the moon going... the moon pulls it further away. And that pulls the tides away. But... see, I've lost myself now. But you see what the point I'm making is, don't you? It seems fucking mental, mate. If they're like, oh, we can't tell them the moon, because there we go. So where are we going? If the moon's going one direction, right? If the moon isn't pulling away from us, what if we're pulling away from the moon, mate? What if through the industrial age and whatever this age is called now, when we've been having these chimneys? I'm kind of referencing an old episode of the Daily Updates here, but. What if it also? It's an insight into my brain, isn't it? It's how my brain's putting it all together. What if all of these chimneys we've placed on the earth, and we keep putting them all sort of like in one country or in a selection of countries around a similar part of the earth? What if that's to sort of control the projection of the earth? So the earth's moving away. Maybe the moon's staying where it always has been. Maybe for just pure coincidence, the moon moves around in one circle and just happens to, have gotten caught within us. But the moon's going to keep spinning at that speed, and, I don't even think the moon rotates, does it, if it's always got a dark side? Unless it's always a different side of the moon facing away, but, just at the same time that we see it every night. But even that doesn't make sense, because time changes. What if that's a way that we can actually truly measure time, and they've lied to us about what a second and a minute is worth? Maybe, time isn't what they say. Maybe it is... what did the Anunnaki call it? Was it a Shah? They called it a Shah. Like a year was a Shah, which is like the equivalent of like 380 years, 3,800 years or something to us. What if that's what's actually going on though there? That's a different way to measure it. Because it's still a similar number, isn't it? 3.82 to 380 to 3,820 or something like that was a Shah. I'm sure there's something to look into for you in your own time. Go and do a little bit of homework for you. Let me know in the comments below this. But yeah, where would we be going? Because if the moon isn't, see, none of it makes sense, mate. It just doesn't make any sense, and it bothers me. It really does. How can the moon be pulling away from us, still be in orbit to us, but we're also travelling through space? It's just bizarre, mate. I know I'm not a scientist. I'm barely anything. But it's just something I thought you should be aware of, and maybe something to consider about why sea levels are changing. It's very convenient, isn't it, to blame us and be like, oh, the sea levels are changing because of all of the, the plastics we're chucking in there, and maybe it's because we've been saving too many turtles, mate. You ever thought about that? You ever thought about all these, maybe it's because of all these hippy-dippy types, mate, going off to fucking Thailand or whatever, saving baby sea turtles, chucking them into the ocean, batting away the seagulls, mate, with the fucking, the wicker-made tennis rackets, the palm tree-made tennis rackets that they've been making in special crafting classes on the beach while they all drink fucking some knockoff type of ayahuasca, and they're all off their faces being like, oh, it's going to be a full moon party, mate. But they wouldn't be speaking like that. They'd probably, because they'd be hippies, they'd be speaking more of like I say, it's time for a full moon party, I do believe, like that, do you know what I mean? And then you've got like the American ones there going, man, see, it's time for a moon party, speaking like that, and all these people of the world just all convening on this beach in Thailand, forcing these turtles into the beach, starving the seagulls and the whatever other birds that come down and eat the seagulls and the crabs and stuff, but forcing all of these basically flesh balls, keratin balls of air into the sea, which is going to raise the sea levels as well. So you couple that with the moon's magnetic pull becoming weaker and weaker as the moon travels at 100 centimetres per 30 years away from us, and then you've got that plus all of these fucking turtles and the whales and the dolphins we've been saving, rather than, we used to kill them. Because think about the people that did used to kill whales and that a lot. It's these civilizations that have been around for fucking an awful lot longer than us, so you got to think that they know something that we don't, innit? And maybe it's a good reason that you fucking kill the whales, that you kill these massive air sacs moving around in the oceans, especially if you want to move boats and that around. We're learning more and more, mate, about how killer whales are rising up against us and that. But anyway, that's, we're getting into something completely different now. I just thought you should know, innit, that the moon's moving further away from us. I'll fucking see you in a bit, mate. Remember, if you enjoyed that, you can listen to all of the others by joining me Patreon. I know you don't all know what Patreon is, so Patreon's a website or an app as well, where you get extra content, exclusive content. It's nothing like my OnlyFans, if that's what you're thinking. Nothing like that. I'll be honest, it's more about what I'm thinking about. Sometimes I'll show the taxidermy. You also get a message on there if I'm about to list a new rat pencil case. You get an hour, 2 hours heads up about when it's going to be made available, so you're in with a better chance of getting it than like the general public, if you like. You'll see new things I've been working on through the week, a daily vlog. I read through old books and sort of analyse them as we go through, take the piss out of them a little bit. You get a bit more of an insight into me, I guess. So if you're into that and you like the way that I think about stuff, mate, if you enjoyed this, if you even made you smirk once, mate, go and do it for a free trial, mate. You can try it free for a week. That's 7 days, costs you nothing. Cancel your subscription on like the 6th day or the 5th day to make sure, if you don't like it, and then I don't get £3 off you, but you still get access to all of that stuff for that 7 days. Do you know what I mean? You might as well try it, innit? If you do like it, join me. And I get a couple of quid in my pocket as well, because I don't really make anything from the podcast, if I'm honest with you. It barely breaks even. But so the Patreon's a way of that, making this sort of whole lot less of a vanity project. But in the grand scheme of things, it all works out, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? I enjoy doing these, and it gets stuff out of my head, as you can probably tell from listening to that. If I let all of this fester and bubble away in my head, I go a bit weird, mate. So it's actually been quite good for me doing these. But like I say, if you enjoyed them, join the Patreon. If you're not going to join the Patreon, though, fucking at least listen to this little advert here at the end. That should hopefully play, because then I get a fraction of a penny out of it. I'll see you in a bit, mate. Nice one.